Always a pleasure, pal.
All right, so a cacophony of news over the last couple of days when it comes to James Comey testimony and the reaction from the White House. Where are you on all of this? What happens now?
I think that there is no doubt that James Comey is basically credible. Let's remember, McGraw, he was under oath. No one else has been under oath. None of the president himself, none of his supporters. They can say that the president's vindicated. They can say that Comey is a leaker and a liar. But only one person in this whole cacophony, to use your words, has been under oath, and that's James Comey. And this is a man of enormous experience and a very good lawyer. And the notion that he would go before a congressional committee and raise his hand and lie is just beyond credibility. Now, you don't have to agree with his interpretation of everything. I mean, you take the debate over the word hope. It reminds me of all the debates during the Clinton times of what is the meaning of the word is, right? Well, what's the meaning of the word hope? James Comey says when the president said, I hope you can back off your investigation of General Flynn, he took that as a directive because it was the president of the United States. The president's supporters say hope is not a directive. Hope is an aspiration. As Donald Trump Jr. said, when my father wants you to do something, he tells you pretty directly. So you can have a question over interpretation, but I don't think there's much question that James Comey was telling the truth about everything he saw and he heard. As George Stephanopoulos said yesterday, this man is not about to perjure himself.
What do you think of Donald Trump's response saying, I'll go under oath 100% and I'll be happy to talk to anybody about this? That's pretty brazen, is it not?
Yeah, and I think most people say, fine, let's put him under oath and let's see what he says. But, Donald Trump, Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, said over the weekend that a lot of the mistakes Donald Trump is making has to do with the fact he's so inexperienced. And I think in some ways that's true. When Donald Trump was in business, calling in someone he was doing a deal with, as he did with Comey, and trying to exact a promise of loyalty, trying to, in Comey's words, create a relationship of patronage, exerting pressure, exerting incentives, trying to figure out the pressure points in which you can get somebody to do what you want them to do. In business, all of that is pretty familiar. But the whole political and legal situation in Washington is so much different. And I do think to some extent what you're seeing is Trump applying business tactics, which were very successful for him over many years, to a political and legal situation in which they are wildly inappropriate. You had a number of Republican senators over the weekend say, whatever else is true, Trump's meetings with Comey were way over a line of propriety. Might not have been illegal, but they certainly were unethical and inappropriate. And I don't think there's too much question about that.
Stephen Roberts, the people I talk to, anecdotally, obviously, are saying, look, great. What about health care? What about tax reform? What about infrastructure? Can anything get passed in this atmosphere in Washington, D.C.?
Well, it's diminished, and this is the larger implication of everything that's happening. This is a magic moment for Republicans to have control of both houses of Congress and the White House at the same time. Happens very rarely in American politics. And the window for getting the legislative agenda through starts closing pretty quickly once you get through the summer into the fall. And Republicans are beside themselves that they're losing this moment. They're losing this incredible opportunity. And the fact is, every day that people talk about Russia, every day they talk about James Comey or Jeff Sessions, every day they talk about obstruction of justice, is a day they do not talk about health care and budgets and taxes. And so it's an enormous distraction. It drains staff time, it drains energy. And the president himself, in some ways, is handing his opponents ammunition by continuing to tweet and pop off about these issues. And over the weekend, several Republican senators on on TV, Senator Collins of Maine, Senator Langford of Oklahoma, basically said to the White House, please shut up, because you're the one who's keeping the pot boiling. You're the one who is making it much harder for us to focus on your legislative priorities.
Do you really think there are tapes of these conversations?
I don't know. People say that in the past, Donald Trump does have a history of taping conversations. And, of course, we do know that many times, not just Richard Nixon, but many presidents have taped themselves in the Oval Office with a great store of tapes from the Lyndon Johnson administration. Right. Has been enormously helpful to historians and analysts of his administration. So I don't really know, but if there are tapes, they are going to come out. Senator Collins of Maine, as I say, progressive Republican, said over the weekend, not only does she think Trump should turn over the tapes, but if he's reluctant to do it, she would support a subpoena. And you got to remember, I'm sure you do, you go back to Watergate, and I'm not drawing an analogy here because I don't think we're anywhere near the Watergate crisis, but it was tapes that were subpoenaed by Congress, which was the final act of the Watergate drama. And once the subpoena was issued, once those tapes were wrestled away from President Nixon, that spelled the end of his administration. So my view is, if there are tapes, they're going to come out.
Stephen Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Have a good week.
Okay, pal.
7:58 KTRS.